What's up, gamers? My name's Scyushi, and today is a very, very special day. Despite all of the controversy around Cube World, I'll kind of explain it in a bit more detail for those of you that don't know anything about this game and the history of it and how it actually very directly relates to the biggest game on my channel, which is Trove. But Cube World finally, after over 6 years, is actually going to be available for us to play on Steam. Those of us that ended up actually purchasing the alpha version of the game 6 years ago, which has since been removed from the store for a great many years. So I don't know when the public release of the game is going to end up being, but the closed beta for people like myself, everybody else who ended up buying this game back in the day, is going to end up being September 23rd. I don't know what time it's going to start or anything like that, but you guys can bet your butts that I'm definitely going to end up doing a Cube World series, all right? Despite my issues with the developer and the development of this game and everything like that, I still enjoy Cube World for what it is. So what we're actually going to do for today is hop into an older version of the game, the original version of the game that I still have on my computer from those many years ago. And I'm just gonna kind of wander around, explain a bit of the game mechanics, and talk about like what this game is and the history of kind of what ended up happening with it. But I wanted to get the release date right out of the gate so that those of you that aren't interested and already know what Cube World is, you guys can just move on. So either way, I do want to mention just before we start with that, if you do have, if you did purchase this game, the way that you're going to go about actually redeeming your Steam key is you're just going to end up going to the Cube World website, which is pachroma.com or something, and then you're going to log in, go to My Games, you'll see Cube World there, and there should just be a Steam key there associated with your profile. It should already all be there. So let's hop into the older version of the game and get to talking about the history. Alright, gamers, so this is Cube World. This is actually my old file. I had a more recent Let's Play series of this game, and I had an absolute blast with it. I was playing with Mert, Critter, Joe, and stuff. We really got into this game hardcore, and I got to like level 113, and I'd say that around that level, there's just no more content beyond that, and the game just becomes like really dull. But that said, it was actually a really good time up until then, just because this game plays very tightly. Like, comparing it to Trove, I would say that Trove definitely took a lot of influence from Cube World at first. That was actually the reason I got into Trove in the first place, was because I thought, hey, this game looked like Cube World, and then it played very similarly to Cube World, at least in the olden times of Trove. It was very, very bare bones and very much felt like Cube World to me. But it was actually an MMO, and it was actually being developed by, a team of people, and hey, it carried on until what it is now, and whether you're still into Trove or not, that's entirely up to you. I still enjoy it. It's still one of my all-time favorite games. That said, I would argue that Cube World has a better combat system. Yeah, I actually like Cube World's combat system a lot more because it's skill-based. Instead of a game like Trove, it's an MMO, so it makes sense, but you literally, your success on defeating an enemy is literally dependent on the stats that you have, and then if you don't have enough stats to solo it yourself, you just have to have other people to slowly compensate with the amount of numbers that you end up having at your disposal to end up dishing out the damage, to end up surviving, what have you. As opposed to a game like Cube World, where if you're good enough, you can literally fight some of the stronger enemies in the game without taking a hit. That said, there is going to end up being a nice balance between you still want to end up having a decent amount of gear and stuff like that, but I like it because we're playing as the assassin right here, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about the class abilities or anything like that, guys, because a lot of this is probably going to end up changing on the closed beta version of the game. And obviously, I'll have videos explaining all the classes, and I definitely want to have some tutorials on Cube World as well, because I know a lot of you guys are going to be new to the game and stuff like that. So I want to introduce you all as if this is a new thing, because I know that for a lot of you, this is going to end up being a new thing. I mean, this game is literally 6 years old now and only finally coming out. So a lot of you don't even know what this is. And a lot of you are even sitting there going, hey, that game looks like Trove. Well, this is actually what started it all. I would actually argue as well, fun fact, a little bit of Cube World trivia here. This is one of the first early access games. So I would argue that Cube World popularized selling an incomplete product. And I know that's a very negative way of looking at it, but it's true. This game came out, it was like $20, I think, at the time. And arguably, you know, it was a lot of fun. All the top Minecrafters were playing it and everything. The game just exploded with popularity on YouTube, just by all word of mouth and everything like that. Similarly to Minecraft. But the dev ended up, I don't know what happened. Drama, who cares? Basically, he ended up updating the game once to fix one bug, and then he abandoned the project for 6 years. Go figure. I don't know why. He has a bunch of blog posts and other posts that you can scrounge up over the years. Honestly, to me, it just sounds like excuses. I personally think that this game came out, it was just a random passion project, or not even a passion project, just a random hobby, I think. And then I think after the exploding popularity, it probably just got too much for him to handle all of that. And rather than come out with continuous updates trying to, you know, update the game and please the fans and stuff like that, I think he probably just got overwhelmed, and then he just bottled up into a corner, and then he just left it. Arguably, you know, he did take this game off of the game store, but one of the things that often frustrates me about the fan base of this game is how biased they are towards defending the developer and saying how, like, you know, everything he does is perfect, which happens with any fan of any game, honestly. You know, there's always going to be those try-hard fans that think everything is awesome, right? But the whole thing that I say to those guys, and I'm not going to get too into it today because I just want to show you guys the basic mechanics, but to any of the hardcore try-hard fans that sit there and think, you know, it's a single developer and, oh yeah, he was dealing with getting DDoSed and blah, blah, blah. It's not like he made this game for free, okay? He made like $1 million easy, and then he just stopped developing it, okay? He could have hired a team. As far as I'm concerned, he might only be developing this game again just because he's running out of money. Who knows? Anyways, I don't want to get into all those controversial topics. I don't care. You know, the game is coming into closed beta, so as far as I'm concerned, it's a clean slate for me. Let's just see where it goes from now. If he's changed his tune, you know, he's going to end up having the game come out, and then hopefully we're going to continuously see updates. When is the open version, like the open beta, going to end up being? When can people buy this game on Steam? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm still skeptical, just because of this guy's track record, that he could just abandon the project at any time again. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that we'll continuously see more of this game. Anyways, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to get into the skills per se, but just to give you guys an idea, there's going to end up being 4 different classes that can use 3 different weapon types each. Basically, it's going to end up being super fast attack with little damage, medium down the middle, or super slow attack with heavy damage. And with each of those, you're going to end up having either more chance of stunning an enemy, more chance of AoE damage, you know, crowd control and stuff like that, or just more single target damage, depending on each of the different characters that you end up choosing. And then on top of that, there's going to end up being a couple different skill trees. There might be a lot more once the closed beta comes out. I don't know. But for today, I just want to give you some context to how cool the combat system can end up getting. So for example, I'm using a ninja. So anytime we end up dodging an attack, or anytime we end up using a special attack, we'll actually dodge damage. So I'll show you guys that in a moment, but then there's also elusiveness. So each time you end up dodging an attack, you gain 25 MP, and your next special attack will be a crit. So your MP on all the characters is pretty much going to end up starting at 0, as far as I recall. And then you generate it by fighting enemies, and basically you cause damage to enemies in order to end up using your special abilities. So it's a very aggressive combat system, which is what I really like about it. And then we've got the intercept ability, which is basically going to be the Neon Ninja's #1 from Trove, where we're going to dash forward and attack the creature. And then we have a sneak ability, which I never use on this guy because it's useless. You're really, really slow. But then we also have the Shuriken attack as our ult, which quite literally is going to have our character physically jump up in the air backwards, similar to the Neon Ninja's backflip when you right click with him, but you're going to be throwing a bunch of shurikens in front of you. And it's really cool because you can skillfully use this to get up to higher ledges that other classes might not be able to without climbing or anything like that. And then there's going to be the bunch of passive abilities. So pet taming, you level that up to a certain degree, and then you can end up riding pets. You can tame almost all of the creatures in the game, and then you can end up riding them, which is really cool. There's a climbing stat in the game, which I'll show you in a minute. It's very similar to Breath of the Wild. There's hang gliding, which is very similar to Super Mario World, where if you end up pulling down and then going back up. You can actually gain altitude if you time it right. Then there's going to be a swimming stat, so faster swimming, because there are ocean biomes. You can't actually just dive all the way down and fight big bosses that are in the ocean and stuff. And then there's going to end up being sailing, which is your primary way of transportation in those ocean biomes. So we'll see how much of this ends up carrying over to the closed beta version of the game. But let's go over here and let's fight some dudes. So I'm obviously really, really powerful. So these things are just going to get annihilated. And then right here, this is a prime example of something that I will definitely have upgraded tutorials on, so long as it's in the closed beta version of the game. But this guy dropped salted caramel. So you're going to end up finding various foods in the adventure, in your world as you're adventuring and stuff like that. And as you do, you're going to end up being able to feed these various amounts of food to specific animals. It's all on the Cube World wiki, so I'm guessing none of that has probably changed over 6 years. But, you know, a caramel, salted caramel, we would give to, I don't know, like a specific animal. Let's just say a candied apple, for example. I think we give that to the horse, or maybe it's a carrot or something. And then we would end up taming the creature. And then we can level it up with us, you know, just by fighting creatures and stuff like that. The pets will end up getting thirsty, as you can see with my little crocodile in the top left. Those blue ball icons or bomb icons or whatever are going to end up being its thirst meter. So you just gotta go and stand in some water, because otherwise it's going to like unsummon or something. But anyways, super duper fast on this character. I love it. We need to generate our mana, right? So we gotta try and find a creature that we can end up fighting. Before then, let me just show you the climbing real quick. It's just going to end up being Breath of the Wild climbing, which I love it. I think that that's really cool that you can end up climbing anything in the environment. And it doesn't just drain your stamina while you're sitting as a fly on a wall. It literally only drains when you end up moving. So the higher your stat value in the climbing, the more you're going to be able to climb before you end up running out of stamina, right? So as we're fighting enemies, you'll see that we're generating the mana in the bottom right. We can end up then using some of our abilities. So there's going to end up being our dash attack, which hopefully these are a bunch of, yeah, those are gnolls or something. So yeah, they're evil. But we're going to use our number 1 right here. So that dashes us into combat. Then if we use our number 3, that was the shuriken right there. Really awesome abilities. Very cool. Very fast paced. Let's try and fight a stronger enemy up here, because you can see we got all this purple glow around us. That's that ability saying that we've got our right click going to end up being a crit. So that's why it did like a crazy amount of extra damage right there. And then on top of all of that, we've also got a dodge that we can do at any time. So as we're dodging, we're actually going to be avoiding damage. So there is pretty much the skill of this game, is you're trying to end up doing enough damage to an enemy to get stunned, and then you want to lay on the hurt. And then while it's doing, enemies can end up doing charged attacks and stuff like that. Like you saw how that guy dashed towards us. There's going to be big ogre guys that will end up doing like an actual charged overhead attack that's very, very well indicated. Sometimes they'll just do an insta-cast and it sucks and it'll just one-shot you. This game is definitely difficult, but it feels like a death is very legitimate in this game, because of the fact that if you're careful enough, you can dodge in the middle of the attack animation and it's going to end up giving you idle frames, similarly to Dark Souls, where you're going to end up negating any damage, right? So very, very cool stuff. And again, with this character, when we're using our special attack, we will also end up having an invulnerability window. So it's really, really cool. So let's just do this, and then I can do my number 1 to pull myself onto this tree. You know, nice movement. I really like the way that plays. So on top of all of that, there's obviously going to end up being all the different gear, and these are going to end up varying in rarity. You can end up getting gear just from farming the same dungeon bosses over and over again. If it's anything like this version of the game, I think the dungeons will end up upgrading over time to stick with you. It was like the way that Cube World works in this version, I don't know if the closed beta is going to work like that, is as you're exploring the world, the first time you discover a dungeon, like that's what this would be right here, it's going to end up defining its level based right then and there. So let's say we discover this and then it decides to be 10 levels over us. It's going to be like a hard dungeon, right? So we might not be able to take it on. So we'll have to actually leave and go find a weaker dungeon before we end up coming back to this one. But during the time where it's completely ungenerated, it can end up being anything. Again, I don't know if this is how it's going to end up being in the closed beta version. It could end up being very different. The map is going to end up being the biggest overhaul that I've seen, because you can actually zoom in and see like all the details and stuff and set waypoints and markers. And I don't think there's this dumb fog of war anymore. I think you just get to see the entire map. It's just that the dungeons and stuff might not end up being marked. So the other thing too that you'll notice is these little swords, right? So for every in-game day, again, I don't know if this is going to affect the closed beta, but for the most part, I'm expecting it's going to end up remaining the same. So for every in-game day, you're going to see we got 1, 2, 3, 4. These are so spread out and ridiculous. I really hope there's a faster mode of transportation in the closed beta version. But basically, these are going to end up being 4 daily quests that we can do, which give you tons of XP. So you would complete all of these, and then you'd have to wait an in-game day for the whole biome to end up resetting. Or we could just travel to the next biome, which you can see right here. We can already kind of see, here's the town of the next biome, even though the next biome isn't actually showing up, because this is one biome right here. So again, I'm hoping that they're going to end up being a little bit smaller, a little bit more focused and streamlined as well, because they are a big problem with this game, as you can plainly see, is it's just a big empty world. There's not really much going on with it. So, you know, really excited, but also hoping that we're going to end up seeing a lot of these things kind of ironed out and changed, because who knows, man, you know? So the gliding in this version is not going to end up being that Super Mario World gliding. This is just quite literally based off of your stamina. So you'll just fly for as long as you fly, right? And it, you know, as you end up leveling it up, it ends up getting faster and faster, so on and so forth. But the other thing that I think is going to end up being a staple holder of this game that's really cool is the stats are infinite. So technically you can just keep grinding till you end up having the ultimate gear in the game, and even that you can continuously upgrade, but then you can keep getting levels to end up leveling up your different abilities. Like you can actually see, I haven't even spent all of my abilities. I can actually spend a little bit more right now, but as I've leveled up these abilities so much, you can see it's barely reducing the amount of time before I can cast again. Okay, that's actually not too bad, because I can cast my shuriken now like literally 1 second less than what it was 2 seconds ago, right? But it's really cool that it has stuff like that, because, you know, the abilities will just get stronger or be able to cast more often and stuff like that, and it's all going to end up scaling based on the gear that you end up having. So, yeah. Anyways, folks, really excited about the closed beta. I think it's going to be really cool because it's going to end up having a Steam integration, so we can join through our Steam friends and stuff like that. I do hope that there's going to be options for me to host a public server, because I would love to be able to play it with you guys and treat this game more like an MMO, where we would all do grinding dungeons and stuff like that. I don't know how hardcore the griefing can end up being, but even in that regard, we technically could just wander off until we ended up finding a place that didn't have it all destroyed or anything like that. Because one thing that I actually like about the newer version of the game is, you know, we've seen in the 2019 gameplay that the dev put out that the mage that he showed anyways can actually destroy the environment with his spells. Because in this version of the game, the only thing that can destroy the environment is enemy creatures using heavy attacks, and then if we end up using a bomb. And even then, it doesn't really destroy the environment too much. It's just something like this. And I think that it's really cool if our abilities destroy the environment, because then it takes advantage of the whole voxel thing. And then technically we could kind of build stuff. We could only really chisel away rather than place blocks, but it's not like I really want a hardcore building or anything like that. But that's where I would say that if we have a public server, you know, we could run into problems, because the server could lag out because people are spamming abilities. Maybe there's too much world generation going on. I don't know. We'll see what happens, because in all honesty, guys, Cube World is like 28 megabytes. Obviously, it gets bigger in file size as we find more and more world file sizes. But anyways, we'll see what ends up happening when this game comes out. I'm really excited about it. As of right now, though, we've got Zelda Link's Awakening coming out in like 2 days. So I'm extremely stoked for that. It also has a very similar kind of chibi art style to like Trove and Cube World. Even though it's not voxel, I'd say it's like a 3D kind of. It's got the same feel. So I'm really excited about Zelda coming out, really excited about this coming out. I think it's going to be awesome to be able to do a Cube World series again, and I'm fingers crossed, I'm really hoping that we're not only going to see enough content to keep the game interesting from this point, But I'm also really hoping that the dev doesn't abandon the project and will continuously update this game until its full release. And even then, I would like to see it continuously develop from then after. Now, last but not least, I've seen a lot of you guys asking whether this game's going to come out on console. And to that, I say, it took 6 years for this game to have a public release. You really think it's going to come out on console? I don't. I mean, if it does, that'd be awesome, but I would not hold my breath. Honestly, it doesn't take a god computer to end up running this game because you can end up scaling down the graphics quite a bit. That said, I do have a god computer, and sometimes I'll get dips in frame rate and stuff. I mean, that just kind of happens with the voxel games, but I'm really excited for it, really excited to see it, and really excited to show you guys everything about it and start some proper tutorials on it. You know, do the same thing that I've done with Trove for so many years, but taking my expertise with that type of game and applying it to a game like this. I think it'll be really dope to have Cube World and Trove just both alongside on the channel, you know. And then up next, you know, we've got Minecraft Dungeons in 2020 I'm excited about, and hopefully Hytale comes out for a beta sometime next year, because that just, that would be awesome. Then I would have all my dose of voxel. Thanks for watching. Smash like, sub for more. Sayonara. Stay epic, everybody.